you. Good morning. So I just want to show you, I was given 30 pages of talking points. Somebody knows my style. I've reduced them somewhat. So I'm very happy to be here this morning. I'm still getting used to doing speeches because I'm basically trying to deal with budget issues. I walked in last week on Monday. On Tuesday afternoon, they had a meeting with me and said, you have to cut $50 million out of this year's budget with mid-year savings plan. And I thought, what a nice way to start. Because I'm trying to put together a budget for next year when you're thinking about what all the things we can do. And the beginning point is, what are the things we're not going to be doing for the rest of the year? So that's sort of where we begin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what kind of things we need from our partnerships with the state. We've built over the years, I think, a really good working relationship with our state legislators. And I can't thank them enough for the work they do. I plan on being down in Annapolis a lot over the coming years. I think it's important to be there, and I think I want to make sure we have the best and strongest relationships we possibly can between the Montgomery County government and the people who represent Montgomery County in Annapolis. We need to work together, and I think our success has always come from our ability to work together, and I'm going to make sure that we move forward on that. There are some key topics which will not surprise people, and so I'm going to start with public schools and Kerwin. And the good news is, thanks to the united efforts of our delegation, the council, probably every local government, all of the labor unions, we were able to change, or at least have the Kerwin funding formulas withdrawn from the Kerwin plan. And that was an enormous victory, because we'd be talking about a very scary scenario if that was our starting point today. Now, we don't know what the formulas are going to be, but that's something that the legislature is going to have to work out. And I think by working together, we can continue to protect Montgomery County's interests. I think what Kerwin is trying to do is really important. I mean, we shouldn't be confused that even though it's expensive, dealing with teacher pay is important. It's hard to attract people to a very difficult profession when the wages are below what people can earn in many other places with the same or less education. And it's not an easy job to be a teacher. I did this for 17 years. I know that. It's also important to have funding for early child care. We have struggled over the years to try to close the achievement gap, and we focused an awful lot on what happens in the classroom, and that's the right way to spend money. But we haven't spent as much attention on the social determinants that affect the outcomes of education for children. And early childhood's a place where getting money can make a significant difference in a child's educational outcomes. Montgomery County, about half our kids are starting elementary school 2 years behind. And I just ask every adult in the world to think about in this room, to think about what it means for a 5-year-old to start 2 years behind at a critical point in their lives when they're supposed to be gaining basic skills that they're going to be able to build on. And early childhood is something that has been shown to make a significant difference if it starts early enough and if it's comprehensive enough, and it's not a cheap solution. And it's something that needs to be addressed and something that's in Kerwin, and that's something that I hope comes out of it. Class size reduction in school construction are big deals, and those two things go together. It's hard to reduce class sizes if I don't have room to put the teachers and the children. And if I'm going to build the classrooms, I need money for the teachers. So there's a relationship between funding both teachers and funding classrooms. And it's important that we get to solutions to this. And that's why we're going to have to work very closely with our legislative partners to make sure we get a fair solution to this. Because I think what Kerwin wants to do is good for Montgomery County and it's good for the rest of the state, but it can't be funded on the back of Montgomery County. That is a non-starter. You can't argue that every child deserves a decent education and then undermine our ability to provide that education. And the state has to get a very clear message that Montgomery County does not have pots of gold, that you can't confuse our success with being, as one of the people I used to see on the campaign trail, Montgomery County is not an ATM machine. And you can't confuse our success here with our ability to have unlimited amount of funds to spend across the state or to spend in Montgomery County to make up for money that's withdrawn from Montgomery County. So I'm looking forward to working with our folks in the state to make sure we get what we need. We have other needs as well. Like I said, early childhood is critically important. It is not cheap, but it'll make a big difference. We have Montgomery College as an enormous asset here. And one of the things we've learned is that, yes, I didn't realize that was an applause line, but that's good. But we've learned more and more. When I was growing up, everybody said you have to go to college, you have to go to a four-year college. We're realizing that everybody doesn't have to go to a four-year college to get a quality education that leads to a quality profession that will make them economically successful. And Montgomery College and community colleges across the state play a bigger role in providing the educational background and training for people to be able to move on from high school and have a step where they can get the education they need to get the careers they want and they need. And so funding our community college is absolutely important. And I would be remiss to not mention the universities of Shady Grove, and it would be, okay. And other people have said this, but it would be important for the University of Maryland to look at what else they can bring to the universities of Shady Grove, particularly in terms of research. No one should miss the byline in the Amazon story about the $1 billion that the state of Virginia threw into tech education, which we didn't even know. No one even had talked about that during the whole run-up to Amazon. But a strategic play to put $1 billion into tech education 2 miles away from where they were going to land Amazon. I don't think that was an insignificant step on the part of the state of Virginia. And we need to think about our education resources and do a better job of funding them in Montgomery County. I'll point out that as much as we have a bioscience center here, which is really important in the Shady Grove Life Sciences area, almost every other similar bioscience area in the country is anchored by a major research institution. Every single other one of them is anchored by a major research institution. We're number 4 in the country. We've gotten there without a major research institution. Imagine what would happen if someone planted a major research institution there. I think it would be a game changer for the state of Maryland. It would be a game changer for Montgomery County. There's no reason why we couldn't climb to number 1 or number 2, but it takes a partnership and it takes an investment and it takes some vision. And this is a moment where we need to ask the governor to have some vision. I want to talk a little bit about transportation. There's a solution on I-270 that doesn't require blowing out the walls of I-270. My council recommended, I think 8 years ago, that we do 2 reversible lanes on I-270. It would give you the traffic capacity you need without doing an incredibly expensive project. The Beltway is a different story. There is no way you can widen the Beltway from New Hampshire Avenue to Wisconsin Avenue. We need a more realistic solution. This is very much a solution from the 20th century. It's not a solution for the 21st century. You can't talk about global warming and you can't talk about our responsibility in climate change and then say, I want to make my roads bigger, 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 and particularly do it through an environmentally sensitive area. And if the governor really wanted to help Montgomery County, he'd start at the American Legion Bridge. I've always been frustrated by the way we do our transportation planning is from the back of the pipeline that's stacked up instead of from where the places are that cause the backup. And the American Legion Bridge backs us up on the Beltway and I-270. Start there, see what happens when you can go across that bridge and what it does to breaking up the congestion on those 2 roads, and then work backward to improve the bottlenecks that remain. But don't start at the back of the line and leave the front of the line, the most obvious problem we have. Don't leave that untouched. So I'd like the governor to help us with transportation, but do it more productively. And I'd also like them to read the Washington Post article. I don't always recommend that, but I'd say read the Washington Post article on business development, and the article that talked about the 22 business executives in the Washington area who said the biggest impediment to economic development in this region was the lack of a bus system. Now, all these executives know about the importance of the Red Line from Montgomery County. That's absolutely critical, but it serves a limited function. Our ability to move back and forth and up and down in the county is hampered by the lack of any kind of adequate bus system, and it's actually not any different in the district or in the Virginia counties. And they said that this region needs to invest in buses. I've served on COG, on the Transportation Planning Board. BRT for the region was in the top 10 projects that COG recommended after we did a pause on our long-range plans and said, what are the 10 game changers that this region can do on transportation? And they picked BRT as one of them. And this is less expensive than anything else we could do. It's more rapidly implementable than anything else we could do, and it would make a difference. And so I'd hope the governor would pay attention to that and make sure we can make our investments so Montgomery County can make the connections from where people live to where people work. A couple of other things on the agenda: more money for affordable housing, particularly more of the tax credits, the 9% money. This is a big deal. We don't get our fair share. We need more money in the pot, and we need a bigger share of the pot. It's absolutely essential for this county, and actually for the state. It is expensive enough to build housing as it is. And if you're in concrete construction and you're spending $300 or $400 a square foot, it's hard to get an affordable unit out of that. We need these tax credits to make it possible to build more affordable housing. We are struggling to maintain the housing we have, and we honestly have no plan for the housing that we're going to need for the population that's coming here. So we need to think about how we're going to address the affordable housing. The governor could help us with that. The governor could also help us on the Medicaid match. We're leaving federal dollars on the table, and I don't understand why we're leaving federal dollars on the table. We need the state to work with us to make sure that we can get the Medicaid match for some of our funding on disability and for pay for people who work in some areas in the county. And this is federal money, and all we need is a little bit of state cooperation to get the guidelines we need, and we would be better off than we are. And the people who do the kind of work in the community that need our support, they're working with some of the most difficult populations you can imagine. In Montgomery County, when we passed the minimum wage, we actually passed a supplement for the disability community. We made a commitment that we would fund the supplement because you can't pay somebody the same amount of money to flip a hamburger as you would to change an adult's diaper and clean them up. That is not reasonable. And we need to make sure that the people who do this kind of work can be attracted with salaries that are reasonable, so a person doesn't say, you know, for $15 an hour I can flip a burger, I'm going to do that because this other job is really hard. We need to make sure that pay reflects the difficulty of the work that people do. I'm a big believer in the $15 minimum wage. I hope the state legislature passes the $15 minimum wage. It's going to be good for Montgomery County. It will be good for other jurisdictions in this state. And I think about it as a teacher because we used to get a lot of kids from other jurisdictions. And getting kids from other jurisdictions, we pay for the challenges that they face. And I'd like to have every child in the state of Maryland come from a family that can support itself, put a roof over their heads, put food on the table, and meet their basic needs. That's not asking for too much. So I'll just close by reiterating what I said before. We're going to work together. We appreciate the role the state legislature has played. You are great partners. I really do look forward to working with you. I've had conversations with folks already. I've told them, when I go to Annapolis, tell me who to talk to, who to see, and how to talk to them. This is a world where I need to go into. I've got people who've been down there for years doing a great job. My job is to serve them, and if I serve our legislators and I'm effective in helping them advance their agenda, I know that we'll be successful in advancing the county's agenda. So thank you again. I look forward to working with all of you.